Hello there. We got a special episode for you today. So, whereas I ended the last episode, we are actually going to do this in two separate parts. So, the first part was about taxes, and this next part is about elections. So, we've had a lot of elections bills this year, and in recent years, really, and the Democrats and Laura Kelly have vetoed almost every single one of them that has hit her desk. And so, we've had to fight for honest elections, election integrity, making sure that citizens only can vote. And we're going to start getting more into the specifics of election policy with the elections chairman, Representative Pat Proctor. Pat, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great having you. And for those of you out there that might not know, you guys are about to get blasted, absolutely blasted with election information, because right now we have two chairman, or one former chairman and one current chairman of the elections committee, and so this is definitely both of our wheelhouses.
Ready to geek out.
Yes, ready to geek out on some election policy. So here we go. All right, Pat, what are you guys working on this year that the folks out there that are listening need to know?
Well, I'm super excited that we just passed two bills to ensure that only citizens are voting in the state of Kansas. I was shocked when I started digging into this to find out that nowhere in our Constitution and nowhere in our statute does it say that only citizens can vote. And that, to me, just seemed like a basic principle that needed to be enshrined in our highest law. And yesterday we had a vote, and 90 to 28, we voted to offer a constitutional amendment question to voters in 2026, and it's headed off to the Senate now.
And so it'll go out to the voters. They'll be able to, say if they want to add this into our Constitution. And it was a bipartisan vote. There was at least three Democrats, I think, that joined us, and so we actually had that's more than I thought there would be. Yeah. And with the wailing and gnashing of teeth of how dare we, make it to where only citizens are allowed to vote. I would think that most Kansans would find that commonsensical. I would imagine this amendment's probably going to pass 80-20 or even higher.
Yeah, this has been done in 8 other states recently, and in every state it was overwhelmingly accepted as an addition to the Constitution in each of those states. To me, I don't understand why it wasn't 125-0. I do not understand why somebody would vote against the simple principle that only citizens should be voting in our state. I'm confounded by why it wasn't 125-0, but the other side doesn't always make sense to me.
Well, and that's, I think, one of the things that we're starting to see nowadays is the lack of common sense. When we're talking about fairness in women's sports, when we're starting to talk about all these things that are going on at the national level, state level, that it seems like in the last 5 to 10 years have just gone haywire. And I think that not only Kansans, but the American people are looking for just common sense at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, another common sense measure that we passed this week, we just had a vote and passed it out favorably with a veto-proof majority, is the idea that the citizenship data that we're already collecting at the DMV, we're going to share with the folks that run our elections so they can make sure that there are no non-citizens on our voter rolls. It's something that we do, but we don't do it routinely because nobody's requiring the DMV to provide the information, and this bill would require them to do it quarterly. It was supported by the Secretary of State's office. Like I said, it's something that we do episodically, and we're just going to do it on a routine basis. And again, I don't know why people are voting against it.
You shared a little nugget on the floor the other day. Can you share how many people were caught in the last review that were not citizens but were on the voter rolls?
Yeah, the Democrats are constantly throwing out these make-believe numbers. 0 voters have ever been, or 5 voters in the last 20 years. Just in the last check of the voter rolls, the Secretary of State's office has identified 80 people who are non-citizens who are on our voter rolls. And they have evidence that at least 20 of those people have voted. So don't tell me it's not happening. I think that this is just a common sense thing that we should check so that we can tell Kansans, no, non-citizens aren't voting in elections. And right now, apparently they are.
And you know what? You know this, I know this, and now everyone else that's listening is going to know this. There are elections here in the state of Kansas that are won by only a handful of votes from time to time, almost every election.
Oh, yeah. My new senator was elected by 31 votes out of 30,000. 31 votes.
31 votes out of 30,000 people voting.
Yep.
Yep.
And 20 of those people had been non-citizens. I mean, the 20 is a lot. I mean, we've had in our local elections city council people elected by one vote. I mean, every vote counts.
It does. And actually, I'm going to reference a statewide situation that happened. So in 2018, it was Chris Kobach versus Jeff Coyer for governor. And if I recall correctly, the vote difference on an entire statewide ballot was 250 votes.
And the state treasurer primary 2 years ago was very, very close to us, several hundred votes.
Yep. So, Pat, we're going to shift gears. What other bills are you working on currently, or what are your committee working on currently as we head through this session here?
Yeah, so I'm really excited. Next week we're going to have a hearing on a bill that's just passed the Senate to eliminate the 3-day grace period. A lot of people don't know this, but here in Kansas, for 3 days after the election, we just keep taking mail-in ballots. And what we found out in this last election from the Secretary of State's office is that we're disenfranchising tons of voters with this 3-day grace period. Just in the primary election, 2% of the mail-in ballots couldn't be counted. The voter did everything right, got it in the 3 days. The election office did everything right, but the post office didn't postmark the ballot, so we can't count it because we don't know that it was cast before Election Day. So I've been trying for years to do away with this thing, and we finally got the evidence that this is disenfranchising voters. Also, I believe the Fifth Circuit in Mississippi just ruled the 3-day grace period there unconstitutional because they said, hey, the U.S. Constitution says Election Day is the second Tuesday after the first Monday in November, and that's when you got to stop taking ballots. So that doesn't bind us, but it's a matter of time before somebody brings suit here too. 31 states don't have this. 31 states, Election Day is Election Day. They stop taking ballots at 7 p.m. on election night. We need to join the majority of the country.
Absolutely, completely agree. And I think that not only with the evidence, but also with the court ruling out there in Mississippi, I think that it is something that we will get past this year. It's something we've been fighting for many years now. But I think the votes are there this year. I think the evidence is enough to where people can see that it's not a good policy to keep in place. Laura Kelly's going to probably veto it again, per usual, but that's okay. We will override her, and we will have it become law without her signature. Now, there is some conversation. There's been some talk this past week about a bill that's going back to your committee, and it's dealing with vacancies in offices, particularly with the U.S. Senate, the state treasurer, and the state insurance commissioner. So, can you walk us through that bill a little bit?
Yeah, the way Kansas works right now, if a senator or the insurance commissioner or the state treasurer were to leave office early, it is up to one person in the entire state who will replace them, and that's the governor. I just don't think that's reflective of how our system works with checks and balances and people's voices being heard through their elected representatives. So what this bill would do would insert the people's voice through the legislature into that process. The legislature would give the governor 3 people to choose from, and she would have to choose one of those 3 options. This is not a hypothetical. A couple years ago, Congressman Jake LaTurner left the state treasurer's office and went to Congress, and Governor Kelly replaced him with a Democrat, even though the people of my district, second congressional district, had voted for a Republican. One person decided to change, to disregard their voice and put a Democrat in the office.
And this isn't the first time either. Kathleen Sebelius did the same thing with Dennis McKinney. When Lynn Jenkins left for Congress, Sebelius put in Dennis McKinney, so it went from a Republican to a Democrat. So unfortunately, in the last 2 or 3 decades, we've seen this trend where the people of Kansas will pick one party to run an office, and if that person moves on or is promoted or goes on to other things, or even if they die, the problem is today, the way that the Democrats have been operating and practicing is that they see it as an opportunity to seize power, and they take it and they put one of their people in place that start passing their liberal agenda and their policies.
Yeah, and I just this to me is another one of those things that just makes eminent good sense. I think that the people of Kansas should have their voice heard when we're replacing an elected person, especially as a statewide office so vital as the U.S. Senate or one of these other statewide offices. And so I'm excited to get it out on the floor and have a vigorous debate about it and get it over the Senate and get it passed.
I am as well. Looking forward to it. Is there anything else that you have going on right now?
Yeah, I'm really excited about one other measure that we're working on. So there's a loophole in Kansas law. It is against federal and state law for a foreign national to contribute money to a candidate campaign, but there's absolutely no prohibition in the state of Kansas on a foreign national contributing to a campaign for a constitutional amendment. And this isn't a hypothetical either. During the we heard in testimony on this bill the other day during the Value Them Both amendment fight, $1.6 million of the $20 million that pro-abortion people spent defeating that amendment came from a foreign national. A guy named Hans-Jörg Wyss, who's a billionaire that kind of contributes to all these Soros causes. So we need to get foreign money out of our elections, and so I'm excited to get that one to the floor and get it in statute too.
Well, I'm sure we're going to hear some wailing and gnashing of teeth on this one as well, which is going to be dumbfounding.
Yeah,
but
I can't wait to hear the other side argue that we should let foreign nationals influence our politics. That's crazy.
But I would bet money that we are, and I'm sure that I'm looking forward to hearing how they're going to twist this one. But that's okay because we got the votes and we're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, hey, do you have anything else that you're working on in the legislature outside of elections?
I am really excited that just yesterday we had a hearing on a bill that I've been fighting for 3 years, disabled veteran property tax relief. It would have a huge impact in my district. Every year we separate 3,000 service members from Fort Leavenworth, Fort Riley, and McConnell Air Force Base, and they pack up their working age. They pack up their working age spouses, they pack up their kids, and they go to Texas and Florida because they have exemption for property tax. We are losing that talent, and meanwhile we've got 80,000 empty jobs in our state that we can't find people to fill. We need to hang on to that talent, and I'm hoping that we can get this done this year because it'll be a big impact for my district, but it'll be a big impact for Kansas.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for joining us this time. Sincerely appreciate it. Everything that you're doing, not only for the veterans of our state, but also for our elections and making sure that we have legitimate elections and we're securing them. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Kansas Briefing, and we'll catch you next time.